Hey everyone, welcome back to our weekly live webinar. Just want to give you guys a couple updates on the webinar really fast. So we're actually starting at 9:30 on these or going forward. But today we have one of our top carriers, actually our top carriers on the life side. It's going to be CICA Life. We've got Mr. Rick with us today and Ms. Mandy. They're going to help us get some questions answered, bring some new stuff to us, talk about some different products that are pieces that they have to allow you to write that product a little bit easier. And of course, any questions that you have, put those in the box. Let us know what you're thinking about, and we'll wrap it up at the end with answering those questions or answer them during. So we definitely appreciate you guys being back again, the first webinar of the year. So we definitely appreciate you being here, and we'll send it over to Mr. Rick.
Well, hello everyone. I appreciate Brand. I appreciate you and Eldercare and hosting this for CICA Life. Um, the main purpose that I wanted, because we have a lot of people appointed with Eldercare with CICA that may just have gotten appointed and aren't really familiar with the product and want to make sure that you understand how CICA Life really fits into your quiver of arrows, so to speak, when you're out there in the marketplace. Because I want to say straight up, CICA Life is not your everyday product. What it is a product that fills a lot of different niches and helps you make sure that you don't walk away from a table without closing a case, because there's absolutely no case, pretty much, unless they're over 85, that you can't write with CICA. So with that, let me get into CICA a little bit and give you a little history of what CICA Life is. Um, the first thing that really important is CICA Life of America is the carrier. The name you'll see is Citizens Inc. Citizens Inc. is actually a holding company. It's a publicly traded company, um, and it owns three different carriers, and CICA Life of America is one of those three. Now, CICA Life has been around for a long time. We'll get into that. Let me go through the little agenda here. We're just going to talk about CICA and Citizens, a little bit of a product overview, some of the advantages like I discussed, product underwriting, how the underwriting's done. It's very different than any traditional life that you're used to. Portal and some of the electronic application overviews, the voice recording expectations, and of course, different notes and of different items of note and future enhancements, and then we can get into some Q&A. So, um, believe it or not, because even though many of you may not have heard of CICA Life or Citizens, it's actually Citizens dates back to 1969. And it's headquartered in Austin, Texas. And like I mentioned, Citizens Inc. is a publicly traded company. Um, they do own several carriers, three as a matter of fact. And CICA Life America is the primary one of this product and the primary one that's done domestically. See, for the last 70 years, or well, not quite 70 years, excuse me, about 60 some odd years, CICA Life has been um, primarily offshore. So they actually sell products in 70 different countries throughout Latin America, the Caribbean, even Taiwan. And the neat thing about that, especially if we have any Spanish speakers that get policies, they have a complete back end, not just some carrier that has a Spanish speaking or Spanish app, but they have a complete back end, claims, customer service, the whole nine yards in Spanish, Portuguese, and Mandarin. And if you've ever dealt with a Spanish speaking client or you're Spanish speaking yourself, it's very hard for people sometimes. Yeah, they get a Spanish app and they get a Spanish brochure, but when they call into the carrier, there's not anybody that can speak to them in their native tongue. And Citizens really has that as a really nice option, because these aren't just college graduates sitting in a room talking Spanish. These are actually people from Nicaragua, people from Brazil, people from all over Latin America that can handle their questions and claims. So they understand the different dynamics and traditions and of these countries. And so they're able to talk to them in a little bit different way than somebody who just took Spanish in college, so to speak. Um, the products that we're going to talk about today with CICA Life America, we launched towards the end of 2022 and really didn't put it too much out in the marketplace until 2023. So it's relatively young in the domestic marketplace. Um, there's two products under CICA. They're both whole life policies. They're both final expense policies. One is a standard issue, and the other, and it's not graded. and there is also a GI. So it's a true GI. A lot of these GIs on the market now, they call themselves GI, but they do have some knockout questions. So our GI is a true GI. There are no disqualifying questions. There are no health questions, nothing. So bottom line is somebody needs some coverage. It doesn't matter HIV positive. It doesn't matter if they had a heart attack or stroke. It's irrelevant. It's as long as they're in one of the 36 CICA states, which is growing, they're available for the GI. So it's who they are, where they live, what face amount they want, and who they want their beneficiaries to be, and how do they want to pay for the product. And that's it. So it's a true GI, and that's a big deal nowadays. The other thing, both these products can be same day issue. There is no traditional underwriting. Either they qualify through the app, through a computer algorithm, and they're issued, or they don't. And we'll get a little more into that, but they're same day issue. Both plans really kind of work in tandem. The way the app is set up, which is also unique, is if you believe somebody qualifies for the standard issue, you can be taking the standard issue app. And if for some reason they don't qualify, you don't have to re-enter that information. All of it stays there, beneficiaries, insured, everything. And all you have to do is switch it to GI and you're done. And you basically go to the end and set up payment and it's done. So that's a really nice feature because many of you probably experienced where somebody didn't qualify and then you had to fill out a whole new app. As far as underwriting goes, when I said, remember, it's not traditional. So with many of you, maybe when you take a traditional app, you have to put in, you're afraid that you're going to have a problem with some sort of prescription or some health thing that might be in the corner of their health report or whatever the case may be. And so you put in explanations for that. I'm actually going to tell you later on, don't do that here. It will go to a real underwriting if you do that. But the nice thing is, and it doesn't matter what you put in as far as remarks, either they're going to qualify on the app for the SI or they're going to qualify for GI. So things that are unique, there is no tobacco usage question. So it doesn't matter if they're smoker or non-smoker, it's the same rates for both. And what's important about that is I've done some comparisons and our rate's actually very competitive up to about age 70 with, in all honesty, with some 8 paper carriers that on their non-smoking rates against our universal rate. And then we're even more competitive if you use their smoking rates against us. So if you have somebody that's a smoker, you can probably find out that you probably get a little bit better pricing through us because we don't have a smoking rate than going through somebody else. So that's one of those niche products that I was talking about. There's also no height and weight questions. So doesn't matter how tall, short, large, skinny, if you've ever had people knocked out because they don't fit within a certain parameter, they're not going to get knocked out of either the GI or the SI, and definitely not the GI. The other thing that's important is we don't pull an MIB. Okay. We have 8 health questions, and they're either able to answer correctly to all 8 health questions and we do pull a script check to verify that those answers are honest and correct. And if they are, they qualify for the GI. The standard issue. And if they're not, then they qualify for the GI right then and there. So that's the underwriting. That script check, it's all done by a computer. So that's a really unique process. There's no waiting around for days to find out if a human underwriter approves them because there is no human underwriter unless you do what I told you not to do, and that's put remarks in the remarks field. And I'm going to beat that dead horse for about 6 times, by the way. Both products, here's another huge niche. Both products are available from ages 0 to 85. Most final expense products start at 45 or 50 and go to 85 max. Then a lot of carriers out there, they have different commission levels. They have a sweet spot of about 55 to 75 fit in there. You get the full published commission. And if you're below that or above that, you get less commission. Our products pay your commission, what you're set up on, at any age through that spectrum of 0 to 85. So you always know what you're going to make on every case you write. It's the same commission all the way through. Um, Health questions, again, we're going to get into a little bit. Let me see what I wrote here and see if I've already covered it. The health questions allow clients and health conditions traditionally require a GA plan to be written standard issue. We'll get into why that's the case. Give you an example. I have an organization, and this is a large organization, but they came to me because they wanted our GI product, um, because they were going to get a little bit higher comp. Okay. Um, and they write 15% of their book, they write GI. And so they write about $35 million a year. So the GI equates to about $105,000 a week in cases in AP. Well, once I explained to them the questions, they started writing right out of the gate $200,000 to $250,000 a week because a bunch of their products that they were having to put into GI became standard issue products because of our underwriting process. So in some cases, let's say you're at a carrier and it gets declined on SI, it may get qualified, they may get approved on our SI because of our underwriting guidelines, which gives you a higher comp, gives the client more face value at a lower premium. So it's a win for everybody. So that is a huge niche for us. Again, that the script check is an instant automated underwriting process. There is no guesswork, and any health questions that are marked yes on the standard issue do become GI. We'll go through a couple of those. And here's 3 of them, the 8 health questions. So, question C, have you been diagnosed by a member of the medical profession with one or more occurrence of any cancer, reoccurrence of cancer, or metastasized of any cancer, or currently being treated for cancer? So, here's the deal. If they've had cancer once and it's in remission and they're no longer being treated for it, they qualify for the SI. If they've had cancer more than once, or they're currently being treated for cancer, they qualify for the GI. It's really that simple. Okay. There are some skin cancers that would throw out that question, as it's there in the parentheses, basal cell, and I can't pronounce the other one. So that's on you guys. Question D. This is a really tricky question. It's a double negative question. Okay. In the past 10 years, you've been medically diagnosed for which you have not been treated by a licensed by a licensed member of the medical profession, or have not taken medication for the following: uncontrolled diabetes. What does that mean? That means if you have uncontrolled diabetes and you're taking medication for it and you're seeing a doctor for it, then you qualify for the SI. Because see, it's a negative question. So the bottom line is the answer to this would be no if you are receiving treatment and taking medication for diabetes. Now, just as an FYI, see, we had an individual who answered no to that and then failed the script check. And so we went and investigated why. Well, yes, that person had been diagnosed with uncontrolled diabetes, but that person hadn't picked up his prescriptions for over 6 months. So he wasn't taking the medication. So therefore, he got rejected on the SI. So yeah, as you all know, not everybody necessarily tells the truth, whether that's intentional or not. Sometimes they forget certain things. So that's what the script check's there to verify. Okay. What's important here, if you go scroll down through these: uncontrolled diabetes, uncontrolled high blood pressure, stroke. We're going to come back to that one in a second. Paralysis, congestive heart failure, heart disease, cardiomyopathy, lung disease, including COPD. I'm sure there's plenty of you out there that have had somebody denied for COPD on a typical standard issue. They can qualify for our standard issue if they have COPD and are receiving treatment and taking medication. This even goes all the way to kidney dialysis. So there's a lot of things that would normally get thrown out of a standard issue product, but don't qualify for, or that will qualify for our standard issue. Anyway, going back to, we talked about stroke here on this question. So yes, somebody could qualify if they had standard issue on, if they had a stroke. But let's go to question E. Question E says, have you ever been medically diagnosed, treated by a member of the medical profession, or taken medication for a mental disorder, disorder of the brain, nervous system? And it lists a few. There's a couple things to note here. This is not an all-inclusive list. If you notice, Alzheimer's disease is on here, but Parkinson's is not. If somebody has Parkinson's, that's a mental disorder. They do not qualify for RSI. Okay. Um, but what's important here with the stroke up above, if you've known anybody that's ever had a stroke, not always, but in a lot of cases, if somebody has a stroke, it causes different forms of mental disorders because of lack of blood to the brain. And so if the stroke caused a mental disorder, they wouldn't qualify under question E, even though they qualify under question D. So that's important. I've had that come up where somebody said, well, they had a stroke. Well, we did when we dug into it, yeah, they had a stroke and they qualify there, but they had some brain damage, which didn't let them qualify under question E. Okay, so that's something to be aware of. What do I have here? It says important remarks section following the health questions. Important. Do not put anything in the remarks field. If you put anything in the remarks field following the health questions, it will get a traditional underwriting. And I guarantee you that 95% of those do not get approved, and it takes weeks to get it done because it's not CICA's normal process of underwriting because everything's done electronically. So do not try to explain anything. If they don't qualify for the SI on the electronic application, they are not going to qualify in underwriting. Okay. Just very important. You cannot explain anything away. Um,
So don't
let's
do it.
see here. Don't do it. Don't do
Don't
it.
do it.
So, this is a page that's in the brochure, and the brochure is available in the portal for you. It's under, I'm not sure, Mandy, what title that's under in the portal?
Yes, it's under the under resources. Then
Thank
it's
you.
the agent guide.
Okay. So there are quite a few documents inside the portal for you. It's just you go right in the top right, it's resources, and there's a bunch of links in there. Brochures, 100 yards. But under in the brochures, it'll talk about the standard issue and guaranteed issue. And there's a couple things I want to point out here. Of course, the face amount varies based on age. So 0 to 50, if you notice 0 to 50, it's in $1,000 increments. 0 to 50 goes all the way to 30K. What's tricky here is on the age group of 51 to 70, the guaranteed issue still goes to 30K, even though the SI only goes to 20. Okay. And then they're both 1,000 and 10,000 from 71 to 85. Again, the standard death benefit, the standard is not a graded product. So it's immediate coverage on the standard issue from day one. The guaranteed issue is graded. It's for 2 years. So if somebody, God forbid, were to pass away in the first 2 years on a GI, they would receive 110% or 10% return on their money as far as premiums paid. After those 2 years and 1 day, it's guaranteed issue on face amount. There are some riders. There's only one rider that you can add on, and that's on this standard issue, and that's an accidental death benefit. That accidental death benefit rider costs a whopping $5 a month, $60 a year. You'd be a fool not to add it in because it doubles the face amount for the client for accidental death. So whether it's 1,000 or 30,000 for $5 more a month, they can have double face value for accidental death. It's important to know that that rider terminates at age 85. So on their 85th birthday, that rider will terminate regardless of policy and when they put it in. The other riders, which are terminal illness, dismemberment, they're automatically included. Well, terminal illness and dismemberment are automatically included on the SI, whereas on the SI you add in accidental death. But all three are included on the guaranteed issue, so that you don't even add a rider; they're just there. And so that's a nice added benefit that you can describe when you're describing what the extra benefits were. Let's see, it's good. This is kind of an interesting note, and that's why I highlighted it down here at the bottom. The way CICA is set up, the max death benefit allowed per plan is per plan, not per policy holder. Okay. So what that means is an individual, let's say an individual says, Rick, I need 50,000 in coverage. And let's say they're 50 years old. and they qualify for the SI. So we got a max face amount of $30,000 on the standard issue. I can also write them a $20,000 policy on the GI. So they can have 50,000 in coverage with two different policies because it's the maximum per plan per individual, not maximum per individual. Okay. So that's kind of an interesting note. And I have seen agents that have called me on this and wanted more coverage, and that's how they were able to get it, is they wrote two different policies on them. Portal overview, we're just going to go down a few things. Brett and Eldercare has a video that takes you through the portal and all the different nuances of it. We do have a new video either coming out or just came out. Mandy, do we have that event? What's a time frame on that one that shows the text and stuff?
We should have that in about the next week and a half. The good thing is the video that is there now shows you the process and if you completed it via voice for the HIPAA. The other two options, text and email, it's the same process except instead of voice, you send them a text or an email to get the authorization. So it's a lot simpler process than even what the video shows.
Awesome.
And we'll get into what those mean, but Amanda, will that be put up in the resource link, that video?
Yes, that will be in the resource link.
Okay, so not only will Brett have it when we get it completed, but once it's completed, it'll also be in the resource links within your portal.
Correct. So one thing, Rick, I will mention, there is a how-to guide on all 3 steps. So while there isn't a video, there is a guide that shows how you do the voice, how you do the text, and how you do the email.
And that's in resources?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yeah. I forgot to mention that as well. So thank you, Mandy. So just general things in the portal, things that are kind of nice. You do have the ability to put a hold date within the application up to 28 days. Again, all applications are electronic. There is no paper app. Of course, premium payment must be submitted at time of application. You cannot do a direct bill out of the gate, so it has to be ACH or credit card in order to write the app to start with. Advanced commissions are only paid on ACH, so that's an important aspect to be aware of. So any credit card transactions will be paid as earned. And you do have the ability within the portal to see submitted applications. And there's several different reports in there that can kind of show you the process of where everything is, what they're paid up to date, if they missed a payment, blah, blah, blah. Especially if they missed a payment, it's most important. So you can go in there and save the case so you don't have any chargebacks. The other thing that can be really confusing for agents, so I want to make sure we cover that, is just-in-time appointments. So whether you know it or not, if you're licensed in 20 states and you get appointed with a carrier, most carriers aren't going to go out and get you appointed in every state with the carrier because that costs anywhere from 20 to 50 bucks per state for the carrier to pay those fees. And a lot of carriers pass those on to the agents. CICA does not. So what they do is they won't appoint you in a state until you write a case in that state. Okay. And it used to be, just so you know, it used to be when you had just in time, almost, I think it was 46 states used to allow you to backdate the appointment to when you actually wrote the case. So you actually had a 2-week window to get somebody appointed. Most states, because of, let's just call it greed, have changed their rules so that no backdating is allowed. They're trying to force everybody to get appointed ahead of time. So what we do is we appoint you when you write the case. And as soon as you get that appointment, your case will go through. It can't be backdated. So for a birthday, that can cause an issue if somebody's birthday is a week out. And in most cases, the app, depending on what that time frame is, the application process, the portal won't let you write that case. If you have that scenario, call CPS, call Brent, call me, and we'll get you appointed ASAP in that state. And hopefully, depending on that state's DOI, we can get you approved and appointed in that state prior to the birthday. So then you can send it in the app prior to the birthday and get the client that rate before they have a birthday. That's not always going to work out to your advantage, but in most cases it does for what I've seen. So we will do everything we can. But when you get to the point where you're writing your first case in any particular state, you're going to get this pop-up. And I don't know if I can expand on this. No. Let's see here. It's hard to see this little thing, but it's an acknowledgement. It's an appointment acknowledgement. And a lot of agents, a lot of people, they don't read it. They just think it's an error. All it's asking you to do is acknowledge below that we're going to appoint you in that state and that we're not going to issue the case until we get you appointed. Okay. So don't click it if you haven't bought a license in that state, because that's one of the things you're really kind of acknowledging is that you are licensed in that state. So if you do click it and you're not licensed, that's going to cause all sorts of problems. So make sure that you're licensed in that state. Just click yes, you acknowledge it. And once you do that, it'll let you continue through the app. Again, the only problem that it may cause if there's a birthday within the next week or so. But again, I just explained how to handle that. So that's the most important thing. At the end here, there is a disclosure saying agent license and talks a little bit about that. But the important thing is don't think it's not letting you move forward. All you have to do is click yes. I have seen an error from just one agent. I've only known it one time where it wouldn't let them move forward. In that particular case, you can basically save it, go out, come back in on list under the applications, which the video will show you, and it'll let you move forward. That's only the one time I've seen that happen, and that's how it was resolved. A few other things here. Applications, as I mentioned, can be taken in person over a phone. All applications over the phone must be recorded. You must record those calls. You must hold on to that recording. And ideally, you will upload it at the end of the application. And I'll go through that in a minute. On the first page of the application, it asks you a very simple question. Are you a call center? Actually, it doesn't say, are you a call center anymore? It says, are you taking the application on the phone or face-to-face? It defaults to on the phone. So, but double check that just in case, and make sure if you're doing it over the phone that you check that box. If you're face-to-face, you check that. The reason that's important is it's a different app. All right, it's slightly different, has slightly different requirements. So you need to make sure that is correct on the very first page at the top, and you're moving forward in that way. A reminder, important remarks following the health questions. Do not put any information in those fields. Hey, Brent, do we put information in those fields after the health questions?
Not a one.
Not even a smiley face, not have a nice day, not a space and a period. You just hit next when that page comes up. You don't touch your mouse anywhere near those fields, okay? Thank you. You will currently, we do not have an electronic signature on the application. That is coming. But currently you sign on behalf of the client when you're doing it over the phone. This is why you have to have the phone call recorded. I should also note there's certain information you have to have on that recording and guidelines that you have to follow. And those are also in your resource guide as to what you need to have on there, because they audit those and they make sure that they're going through, that you're going through all the steps you're supposed to do, because CICA gets audited by the DOI. And if you don't follow that, then CICA's got to come after you. And particularly a DOI can come after you. You can lose your license, all sorts of different negative, bad things. So just follow the guidelines. It's simple stuff that you're confirming their name, you're confirming their phone number, confirming their address, making sure this is a policy they want. Just confirm the information. It's really that simple. It's not a complicated process. So there is no electronic signature. You sign on behalf. You will sign in a field that's entitled recording ID. All you have to do, because the DOIs require that field be a unique identifier. So the unique identifier will be the insured's phone number. I don't care what format you use, whether you use parentheses, dashes, or you just put all 10 digits in a row. I don't care. And you follow those numbers by the date of the application, the date you're taking the application. Again, I don't care if you do 2025 or 25. I don't care if you have slashes or hyphens. I don't care if you run all the numbers together. That's the two sets of numbers need to be there. Phone number followed by the today's date. And the phone number needs to be the insured's phone number. It's that simple. You see the examples down below here. You can run them all together. You can do it however you want. All right, let's go here. So we kind of really already talked about this. I highly recommend, if you have a question for channel partner support, which by the way, Mandy is a director of and runs channel partner support, use the email. It's going to be a lot quicker. It's easier to track. To give you an idea, CICA has grown exponentially month over month for the last 2 years. So if you can imagine that kind of growth, imagine what Mandy's up against trying to keep staff on board, keep them trained, and be able to keep up with that doubling demand almost monthly. It's not really feasible. So you could be on hold for a long time trying to get through somebody live. If it's email, Mandy pretty much runs that place with a whip and will have people there till all hours of the night to get back every email if before they leave. So you're better off to do it that way. You can also reach out to Brent with a question. He can reach out to me and we can get things taken care of that way. But again, I highly recommend an email, and I would put a phone number in there, and perhaps if they have questions on your email, they can contact you. Okay. Again, many of your questions, by the way, are in the resource links. Many of those questions you will find in the resource links. If you have a issue with payment or a client, then that's something you should probably be reaching out to CPS through the email. Okay. Make sure you put the case number and everything else. By the way, the application number is also the policy number. It doesn't change. So it's the same number regardless of the situation. We kind of talked about voice recording and expectations. Again, the whole list, or I think it's only 8 or 9 items really that need to be on the recording are in the resource guide. But again, all phone applications must be recorded. Guidelines are in the portal. The recording ID application must be the insured's tone number followed by the date to be valid. We've gone over that. There is the HIPAA section where we pull. If you're doing a GI over the phone, you have to read them the HIPAA requirements. If you're doing an SI, you have to do a 3-way call or text or email in which they sign off and verbally sign off on the HIPAA. And that also allows CICA on the SI to pull the script check, which gives you a decision in about 30 seconds if they qualify for the SI or the GI. If they qualify for the SI, it moves forward. If they qualify for the GI, it tells you. Okay. There are audits on recordings and your expected success rate is 98%. So there's really very little wiggle room when it comes to the DUIs. We do naturally will audit 5%. I mentioned a while back, there's a right after you finish the application, after you've hung up with the client, there's a place to upload your recording. I highly recommend you do that. Otherwise, we gotta hunt you down and ask for those recordings and on any kind of audit. So if you upload them, there's not really going to be any issues. Let's see here.
Rick,
Just
can I
the only
mention
thing,
something quick?
please.
Okay, going back to the HIPAA section, if you do the HIPAA guidelines over the phone, when you go through that process, it's going to you conference in the 800 number. It's going to give you a 3-digit ID that you'll need to take note of. The recording is going to play. You'll need to have the applicant provide their authorization by stating their name, email, or their name and full address. One of the things that I really want to mention is you'll want to disconnect that call before you enter in that 3-digit code and hit next. If you are still on the phone during that recording and you enter in the code and you hit next and the person's still giving their authorization, it's going to error out on you that says that number is invalid. Make sure the call is disconnected, try it again. You have up to 5 times to get that number correct. After the 5th time, it is going to prompt you that you now qualify for a GI. So when that happens, you're going to have to go back and rewrite the whole application. It's going to be important. Make sure that you disconnect the call if you do it by voice. make sure you write down the number correctly, and you have up to 5 times to get that in there. So that's just, call that out in regards to the voice. Otherwise, do HIPAA or do it via text or email, and you don't have to deal with the voice piece of it.
Thank you, Mandy.
Yep.
So, right here in the HIPAA section, I'm going to go over what Mandy said again, because this is really
Sorry,
really
I jumped the
important.
gun on it. Sorry, Rick.
No, you're fine. I'm glad, because honestly, it's so important, and I only have it in here once. The 3-digit code is alphanumeric. So it'll say Whiskey Foxtrot 7. So that would be WF7. What Mandy said is really important. Do not type it in the box. Write it down on a piece of paper. Disconnect the call, count to 5 in your head, I don't care, and then enter it in the box and hit next. Then it will work. I have plenty of agents I've been talking to. They, as soon as they hear it, they type it in there. They just don't hit next until after the call disconnects and they get the error. You have to write it down. Do not even type it in the portal until after the call is disconnected. That's really, really important. One thing that's also kind of cool, true Social Security billing will be coming here hopefully soon. So for all those that don't know what true Social Security billing is, it basically, because Social Security, depending on the individual, can pay, let's call it the 5th, but then if the 5th falls on a Sunday, they get paid on Friday the 3rd. So what true Social Security billing does, it makes sure that the client gets billed on the 3rd, if that's when they're going to get the money. Because let's face it, unfortunately, a lot of these people live paycheck to paycheck, and we need to make sure the premium goes through so you get paid, and don't get a chargeback. Other scenarios on Social Security billing, some people get paid on the 3rd Wednesday of every month. Well, that's a different day every month. So it rotates around to make sure it's billing them on the right day. So that's what true Social Security billing is, and that'll be coming. That will help retention quite a bit for a lot of people that are using ACHs with Social Security billing. We've gone through most of this. Really nothing there. The only other thing, once again, Mandy's team, right? This email goes in a banner across the bottom of your portal, cps@citizensync.com. Highly recommend using the email versus a phone to reach out to them. In almost all cases, you're going to get through quicker and get responses quicker.